All right, here
All
we
right.
go.
Well, we are officially on episode 2 of our podcast, The Rewind. Last week we touched a little bit on John's story and whatnot, but again, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Edgar. I'm the host of the Rewind podcast, and I'm here with my best friend.
Yep, and co-host Jon Grogan. Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, last week we went over a little bit of what John's story was and what he had to share about his past, his upbringing, his family, his brothers, his dad, and everything like that. But I think, you know, um, which we did get a lot of good feedback, and thank you guys if you watched the video. We appreciate your support, and if you want to subscribe, if you want to like, and we'll keep sharing more content out there for you guys. But yeah, we're gonna be diving in a little bit more on my story and my background, which I'm a little like I don't know. Again, I don't go back and like think about my past or anything like that. So this will be interesting, kind of putting those pieces together as we go along. But I hope you all had a great Christmas. How was your Christmas?
it was excellent. Spent some time with my family, my girlfriend's family. Yeah, it was a really, really good Christmas. How was yours?
Nice. It was good. Just spend it with family like, as well, with my wife and her family, and then on Christmas Eve we usually spend it with her family, and then Christmas Day with my
Very
family. So it
nice.
was nice. We had a little bit of lots of food actually,
Very
and
nice.
whatnot. But yeah, man. I
Yeah,
guess we'll just get right to it, and then we'll just kind of let John kind of lead the way on this one, and kind of you take on and
yeah.
go for it.
So yeah, last time we dived into my story, and obviously me and Edgar's, stories kind of intertwined quite a bit. So hopefully we'll get a lot more of that. The combination of both stories, so you guys get to know us as a, as a whole, and kind of our dynamic as best friends, as business partners, and all that goes. But yeah, I think basically where we started off, last time we ended with kind of how we got to the start of our company and everything. But yeah, let's start at the beginning of your story and just kind of go through there. So we'll start off by, I mean, I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
let's start off from the beginning. What high school did you go to? How was your family life? How was that dynamic growing up? Who were you as a person,
yeah.
and all of that?
So a lot of people know, and I do like. I take, I guess, pride in being the fact that I'm an immigrant. I came here at the age of 8. I lived in Mexico the years before that with my not with my grandparents. So like my mom raised me and my sister, my older sister. She's I believe 3, 4 years older than me. And basically we grew up in Mexico, and by the time we were 8, or that I was 8, that's when they pretty much my mom came out the year before. She migrated out here to basically give us a better life, and then fast forward, like I spent a year with my grandpa and my grandma going to school. They kind of raised me, and then so I got to see a little bit of what life was like out there. I don't remember much of it, but growing up, yeah, it was just different than
Yeah.
what you see here.
Yeah, no, let's I mean, let's go back a little bit as far as you as growing up as an immigrant. Like tell us a little bit more about that and your experience with it, because me being, somebody who was born and raised here, and you have definitely a completely different dynamic because you also grew up without a father, many of those things which I had growing
Mhm.
up. So tell like a little bit more about that, and your like what was that experience like in comparison to like with other people that you've talked to, like
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, no, it's really it's interesting. So I always every time from growing up, my grandpa was a big role model for me. He was a police officer in Mexico, and my grandma was basically a home caring for all my uncles and aunts and my mom, and they took us over. So growing up, there's just so many stories from the age of when I was born to the age of 8 of what I lived out there. Like pretty much coming close to death twice. One being an accident when I was ran over by a car. I think I was well, I actually rewind. So the first time it happened, there was actually hijacked a bus in Mexico. So it's very common for things like that to happen. And being that I was the only child in that bus, when they went around asking people to give their belongings, my mom was in shock. So she didn't really necessarily was aware of what was happening. My grandma and my aunt were there, and basically those guys took me as a hostage and put a head on my gun to my head and threatened people if they didn't give their belongings. They were gonna kill me
Yeah.
basically.
So
And
that was and you go ahead.
no, and that was basically I think again I have to talk to my mom when what timeline it was in my life,
Okay.
but I was probably like in my first 3 4 years of my life. Basically, I was a baby
Yeah.
when that happened, and so that happened, which was crazy to hear the story because I wasn't. I mean, I was not conscious, but I heard about it, and it was just like an act of God, basically, because
Yeah.
the way it all played out, like my mom had no money. She was in shock because I was being held hostage, and crazy. Like during that time, like there was some. Again, this is a story from my mom, my grandma, and my aunt. There was a guy sitting on the back seat of that bus, and that guy basically smacked my mom conscious because she was like freaking out. And so next thing you know, he slides money under her hand and said, "Give him this money," basically to the the people that had me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to think about because it's like it doesn't happen just to anybody. It's weird to even tell the story, but I think it was such a for me it's such a eye opener
Well, I can
of
certainly
my
say
faith.
most people in
Yeah,
America do not have that story. And you've told me a little bit about, your, how you got to America and, all of the accounts. And I hope we'll get into that a little bit as
yeah,
well. But it is really like an absolute miracle, the fact that you're here in and of itself. I think I heard like I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about how just like how birth itself is a miracle when you look at like all of the possibilities in a whole who could have been born and you go into
yeah.
like just you the miracle of life, but you yourself, you've had many accounts of death and things like that, and even just getting into America, and also like what you've done here is
Yeah.
absolutely
It's an
astounding.
act
So
of
that's
God because I don't know how
yeah.
that happened. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, so that's kind of the one story of like, when I was growing up in Mexico, that's things that happen normally out there. And again, my mom, once that moment was over, like, my grandma tried finding that guy and they could not find him anywhere. It was
Wow.
like he just disappeared after they got to their destination to
Yeah.
my grandma's hometown. Fast forward a couple years later, I used to collect these little things that came in the chip bags, and basically they were like Pokemon characters on them. And I used to ride along with my uncle a lot. He drove a taxi out there, and one day I got out of the car. Again, I was maybe 7 years old, 6 years old. I want to say maybe actually like 6 years old, and
Mhm.
I dropped him when I got out of the car, and it was like one of those old school Volkswagen vans. And when I dropped them, they some of them went like by the sidewalk and some of them went under the car.
Mhm.
So I didn't know best. So I actually went under the car to start collecting my tazos is what they were called. And my uncle thought I had gone around to the backside of the car. He didn't realize that I was under the car, so he started driving off. And I was under the car. Literally drove like he drove with me under that vehicle for about a block, and everybody was like flagging him down, telling him to stop, and then he stopped.
So you were like literally getting dragged
I was
underneath the car
Yeah,
like a
I
block.
was literally getting dragged under the car. I don't know. I remember losing conscious and just blacked out basically. And
You were
then
8.
I know I was younger than that.
Still young.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was like probably 6 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, so then that's what happened. Not too much after the other incident, like a couple years after, and then again that was another thing where I was unconscious for I want to say about a week from what
Mhm.
I've heard, and then came back to reality. And I still have a broken from the incident. Some of my ribs are not like fully in place. And it's just crazy. That's again another miracle. And yeah, so to answer your next question was, what was it like crossing or getting over here? And that in of itself is it's a long story as well because it just goes. I remember one night, my grandpa and my grandma just told us like, "Hey, we're gonna get ready to go see your mom," and I was like, "Cool." We were very excited because we haven't seen my mom in about a year because she was here working. And then so what they did is I believe they drove us or we flew. Again, it's very like blurry, but I think we flew to Juarez,
Mhm.
which is kind of close to the border. And then they basically it was me and my grandma, my sister, and myself. And again, I was young, like not even I was eight and a half, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, they drove up there. Then they transferred us over to people we no to a pastor actually found that is a family friend in Juarez. And then he took over and transferred us over to the coyotes is what they call them, the people that bring immigrants on the other side. And basically from there it just became very sketchy because we didn't know what to expect. All I remember is my grandma telling us to always pray and to not leave each other's side, like me and my sister, because we were on our own. We had no contact with any of our family members. We never talked to my mom for about 2 to 3 weeks. We didn't talk to
Mhm.
anybody. And then it got to the point where we had to, it was in Juarez. So then we were transferred to, that's where we were going to get ready to cross the border, but they kept us at a house. And again, human trafficking, Sound of Freedom, that movie just really hits because of the stories that happen. I mean, human trafficking, child trafficking is a very real thing,
Yeah.
and that could have happened to us. Me looking back, I'm like, geez, like it was a high risk. We would have been, who knows,
Yeah.
murdered, sold. Who knows what could have happened, but we weren't. And so anyway, so then they drop us off there. Then we stay at this house that we don't know the people. We have to learn new identities. So I had to remember a new name, first, last, middle, name, everything, new date of birth, my parents' names from the US. And basically they gave us a new identity. And then we had some random lady become my mom.
Mhm.
And they basically had us study that every single day. Like, do not forget your name. Do not like study it, like repeat it to each other. Like once we're at the border, you can't not remember, and you can't
Yeah.
say your real name because I don't know what would have happened. So, anyways, we get to the border, and we get in a bus to get to the border, and then basically there, I remember my sister was with her mom, like a couple of seats in front, and I was here with my mom, not my real mom, but like the fake mom. And she gets out of the bus or no, the one that was my mom got out of the bus and she was gone. And so they left me alone. And then the mom had to take me with her. And so then we're literally like, we don't know what's going on. I don't know if she bailed or she had a bad feeling and she just left. So then I was sitting there by myself. So the other lady came over and got my hand and just said, let's go. You know what to do, basically. And then me and my sister just walking with her, and we get to the very front of where immigration kind of checks you in to check your papers, check your name, everything like that. Literally cannot lie to you, it was like we became invisible. Nobody asked us questions, nobody said anything, and we just walked right by.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know is another pastor from a church here in Denver came a week later to pick us up in California, and he's the one that drove us to Colorado. And then we arrived to Arvada to my aunt's
Yeah.
house, and we were safe. And then that's when I met my first time meeting my cousin Evelyn and Eileen. They were like young babies. I was still a child as well, not that
Yeah.
I was any older, but it was late at night on, I think it was on 72nd and Sheridan is when I first arrived to Colorado. And so that's kind of like the snippet background of like just to the age
Yeah.
of 8. And then
That's crazy. I mean, that's just a crazy start to life in general. And as far as like how much like you've probably been like told stories and everything of the past, but like do you remember a lot of that? Like does a lot of that like play a part in like your emotions, everything like now and today?
honestly, the biggest things I remember is um not really, honestly. Like
Yeah.
I think it's just really hard to think that any of that affects me in any way. It
Mhm.
affects me in a positive way because I know how hard it is for people or kids that are being brought here without a choice. Like
Right.
it wasn't like I said, "Hey, I want to go to the U.S.
Mhm.
and build a career." I didn't have the choice, so
Yeah.
I was brought here, because my mom believed it was the best choice for us and for her, and I believe it was because I don't know what my life would have been like out there or my sister. It's just things work out for the best, and I would say just
Well,
uh,
being your best friend. I mean, that all is it's amazing the fact that you're here and on top of that, just like what you've done while you've been here.
mhm.
Um but yeah, that's yeah, an incredible upbringing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then I guess fast forward to my kind of time frame of being here, middle school, high school years. It was kind of during elementary school and high school, or middle school, sorry. Elementary was a little bit hard because I had to learn a new language. So basically, going into the school and math is different. I have to learn a language, and then just like all the variables that go into that. And then a part of it also being bullied because I didn't know English. Um, and it was really tough because I didn't want to go to school, and that was when my rebel stages started, where I thought my only way to defend myself was to fight other people. So I became
Mhm.
very aggressive and very angry. And so throughout my life, I just got in a lot of fights. I would get home. I would have black eyes. I would have bloody fists. Like it started in like fourth grade,
Yeah.
like third, fourth grade, I believe. And it just was nonstop. And it was, I think, mostly because of the bullying that took place around that time. I just found a way to defend myself. And I wasn't, my grandpa always told me never allow anybody to pick on me. And
Mhm.
I never did. I was like, either I get my ass kicked or I'm going to kick someone's ass. And it just, yeah, it was what
Yeah.
it was. And that's kind of like my, kind of like that kind of stage. And I was never kind of like you as
Like,
well.
yeah.
It was very hard for me to kind of focus with school and like especially because I had to learn a new language, so I fell behind on subjects, so I had to get held back because of my my the
Right. The
barrier of
language
having to
barrier. Yeah.
learn a new language. So I got held back in fifth grade and took
Yeah.
taken back to fourth to kind of try to catch up because it was tough. But yeah, that's kind of like the the stages of that upbringing, and then yeah.
Yeah. Of getting from obviously from Mexico here to Colorado, and then growing up through high school. I guess when you were in high school, obviously high school wasn't something that really I mean, school in general, like it didn't really appeal to me either. What were some things during that part of your life that like did appeal to you? Like, were you in sports? Were you in things like that? Like,
Yeah.
what was kind of your like motivation during that time of your
Yeah,
life?
sports definitely. Again, so I did play sports. The first time I ever joined an actual team environment was in my freshman year in high school. Before that, I've never played team sports. I never had the opportunity. There was, I mean, growing up here, it wasn't like we just came in. We had everything set up. We had to earn it, and so basically, like from the time I moved out here, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade, every year I think we moved about four times each year because we couldn't. My mom couldn't afford
Yeah.
to be able to like support my sister and I, and then she started having kids with my stepdad, and so it became harder. And so the stability wasn't there. So meaning that there was no financial backing for me to play
Hmm.
sports. So high school freshman year, I did join sports and I enrolled myself. But the only thing is that I wasn't disciplined in my studies and I wasn't getting my work done. So I wasn't able to play, but I still joined the teams because it was just like gave me something. It gave me like something to show up to school.
Yeah.
Didn't mean I had to show up to class. It just meant I have a reason to show up to school. But it's
Right.
like going back to that father figure, like not having that discipline. If I feel like if I would have had that, my life would have been a little bit different.
Hmm.
But at the same time, maybe I wouldn't have became the man that I am now
Right.
because I wouldn't have faced the trials.
Yeah.
And so sports was huge. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
massive. Even though I could not play till my junior year when I
Yeah.
kind of applied myself.
Right. No, I definitely see that difference, and especially in the way that me and you have grown up, and how we're different as yeah as individuals. Like you're very much so, like I talked about, you're very much so like you're a go getter, you're a leader, and things where it kind of takes like it took me a while to get to that place to lead my own life and to get out there. And so like there's pros and there's pros and cons to both sides.
Yeah,
Benefits to one, not to and to the other. Because if I had had that level of like just the level whether the Dwayne Johnson talks about it, but you're back against the wall. You only have one way forward.
hmm
That creates a lot of motivation and incentive in life. And one of the questions that I was going to ask you that I had written down was basically like, what was your inspiration to become entrepreneurial? Because that has been something that has been in you since I've known you. I mean, ever since working at Aspire Fitness to
yeah.
Pride, like you've always known that was like something that you were going to me, and or you were going to do, which is not the
Sorry,
which,
guys. There's Anyways,
yeah.
continue.
But having that entrepreneurial spirit is something you've always had, which isn't something that I always had. Like always, when I was growing up, I had very much so the mentality of like going to be a firefighter, working your classic, day job and stuff like that, because that's the way I thought. So what
Yeah.
was like, what is that? Would you say that was like your primary motivator to become entrepreneurial and to be a very, very like, who you are today? Or yeah.
I again, I don't know how I got to where I am. I could not pinpoint. The
Mhm.
only the only way explanation I can always give is God has fingerprints through
Yeah.
my life. And even again during high school and then after high school, I did graduate. I got my diploma. I had to do day school, night school, online
Mhm.
school, and that's when I became, I realized what I was doing with my life as junior year, where I was like, I need to do something. Like I'm young. I was fully aware. I was a big liar back then. I caused a lot of trouble. I gave my mom so many headaches. And so I never felt like I was meant for the normal. Like it was
Hmm.
just something that never could sit in my head or in my heart. And I worked so many jobs from after college. So I went to college once, I guess half a semester in summer of 2013 to Front Range. And I went to the classes and I was like, I didn't even know what I was going to study. I just kind of went and took the basic classes and I just didn't feel like it was for me. So
Yeah.
after that summer, I decided to kind of just go find my own way in a different place. And then being an immigrant with tuition, you're paying double what a normal person would pay on tuition.
Really.
So meaning that, you know, it's one of those things where if someone from Colorado is paying $1,200 for a class, I'm paying $2,400 for a class. So it was very expensive. So to me, that didn't make sense. And then so during that time after I left the gym, I was still an immigrant. So I wasn't able to, um, basically wasn't able to, sorry, I got distracted.
No,
I
you're
wasn't
good.
able
Yeah.
to apply myself. And then being an immigrant, I guess you're not able to get a job like anybody else would. So I was working at different jobs like painting. I did roofing for a little while. I did so many jobs. I can't
Mhm.
even tell you, janitorial, everything like
So
that.
this was in between because you, after high school, you went to college. You briefly went to college for like a short period of time and realized that that wasn't going to work out. For one, it was way too expensive and just not, and it just clearly wasn't,
Yeah,
desire. Like it wasn't a desire for you to do that. It was just what everybody else did. And so after this is when you just got into like all of the
I did a lot of trades.
miscellaneous different things.
Yeah.
How many different jobs do you think you had during that time period, through that course of life? So let's say, Aspire Fitness is like the stop because that's where me and you
Yeah.
met and became
Yeah.
friends. Like how many different, because that's a pretty broad spectrum of time
Oh yeah.
between then.
No,
I mean,
that's
that's like what, 4 or 5 years?
it's 4 or 5 years. Yeah. So in 2013 to 20, I think 2016, 2017 is when we started working at Aspire. But anyways, during that time frame, I had multiple jobs. I worked as again a painter. I want to say total amount of jobs that I had in that time period is probably close to a couple dozen.
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't necessarily that I wasn't wanting to work. I just didn't feel like I was meant. I just felt like I was meant for more, and I
Yeah.
couldn't sit and knowing that I could do more.
Yeah.
But I never had any role models. I didn't have anybody to like a good friend to kind of motivate me and encourage me or like mentorship around me to kind of help me figure things out. So my last job that I had before I went to the gym, I was working as a tax preparer for businesses. I filed taxes, every year for people, and then I was kind of an insurance agent, so I sold insurances for auto, all that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
and I did that for one season. And again, I just I could not sit at a desk for long periods of time and focus and try to sell people insurance.
Yeah.
So I remember I started looking at gyms, and I was like I was starting to get into fitness with my friend Mac, and basically I was like I would love to work at a gym, but again I didn't have papers, or no, at that time I had papers because I got my work permit.
Right.
So then I applied for 24-hour. I applied for all the gyms you can think of, and I went to the interviews. And every interview after we were done, they told me you're way underqualified for this job. Like you're not where you should be to be able to work at a gym as far as like sales skills and people skills and customer service skills. And I was like, well, just give me a chance. Like I was like, just give me a chance. And the
Yeah.
guy was like, basically, when I interviewed at the one of the bigger branches, he gave me a pen. He's like, sell me a pen. And now I look at that and I'm like that, now that's the most
Yeah.
like can you sell me a pen? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. To me, it's just like such a dumb way to go about hiring people.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in a different position. And anyway, so I didn't work at a gym, but there was one on Craigslist actually. I went in and I just typed in gyms near me to see if there was any job openings. And that's where I saw Spire Fitness. And it said that it was going to be open over there on a shopping center that was on 84th and Federal. And I was like, what? And there's no way. Because I worked at that grocery store before it became a gym. And I was like, there's no way that they're like, I didn't even know that store closed. And so they did. And then I went to the interview and they called me and they said, when can you come in for an interview? I went to the interview and basically one of the guys that was one of the membership sales guys interviewed me, but I was supposed to meet with the district manager, which you know who I'm talking about. And he didn't show up because he was busy. So I interviewed with the other guy. His name is Jalen. He knows he's an awesome guy. And basically he walked me around the gym. There was construction everywhere. There was no actual gym, but he painted a picture of the gym, even though there wasn't a gym. And he was like, this is what you have to do every time you have someone come in and sell a membership because we're not open yet. And I was like, okay. Yeah. So then I was like, we sat down at the front of the building and he was like, yeah, kind of asking me questions and whatnot. And then before I left, Jalen basically, he was like, we have a couple more interviews that we have. And so I guess we'll give you a call when we're kind of making that decision. And before I left, I literally looked at him face to face and I was like, dude, if you bring me on, I promise you guys will not regret it. I was like, just give me a chance. I literally told him that. And so not 2 days later, he calls me and he's like, hey dude, he was, he calls me, the district manager, and tells me basically that I was hired and when can I start? And I found out that they had chose me over a couple of collegiate athletes who had way more credentials than I did. They basically chose me because of what I told them. Yeah. Fast forward that whole time, we became best friends with that district manager. We became really good friends with Jalen. We ended up working together at the other roofing company, and yeah, man, it got to the point where they couldn't figure out how I was able to sell so many memberships. I was able to go out in the field to businesses and come back with 5, 6, 7 memberships with credit card information ready to go. Like they had to literally, like, I remember Jalen saying I had to figure out what you were doing. So I would kind of look over your shoulder, make sure you weren't doing anything shady. And I was like, no, I'm not. Yeah. I'm just being genuine. And I really want to learn. And so that's when kind of my life kind of shifted, is the gym industry, that time in my life where I think that's, kind of answers your question. That's when the entrepreneur spirit kind of kicked in.
So you didn't really have that until we got to the gym industry. Wow. Yeah. Okay. No, that's the first that I knew that. I thought that you had always been kind of that way. I
was a rebel, like not disciplined, but I wouldn't say it was...
You didn't fit with the norm, I guess. So more so you weren't, follow within the lines, which I don't think either of us were. I look at that time at Aspire Fitness and I look back at it and it blows my mind because it was kind of a similar way like that I got hired. Like, there was many other people qualified for those positions, and it just goes towards like that organization. I think it's built a lot of our character as individuals and who we look at, as far as people that we look at that inspire us. And, because you say it when you go into interviews, it's not, you could care less about what's on their resume. It's like, talking with them and getting to know their heart and their desires and their spirit and their outlook on life that really sells you. And I think that's been a benefit in our lives to look at people in that way because, most people, they just look at the credentials on the paper and then they pass people off. But if people had done that to us, we wouldn't be here. And so it's amazing that part of my life amazes me every time. And it's definitely like, again, like you've talked a lot about your faith and everything. And every time we go through our lives, which I think is the big reason why we're doing this podcast, is it tells so much, and you can like see the hand of God in your life and how he works and everything. Like it's very, very hard to see that way forward when you're in it and everything, but you look back and you're like how in the world, how did this even happen?
No, it is
especially
crazy.
through your life,
Yeah. And it was just crazy. We got to meet so many great people in that environment. And that's what the competition of having a feeling of a team environment but not just a team of people who are competing against each other
Yeah.
to see who's the best. And I just truly always,
Yeah.
for the last thing I wanted to do at the end of my day is I wanted to be the first one in the gym.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the last one out of the gym, and I
Yeah.
made that happen. Even if I had to work
Yeah.
extra, I didn't care about the pay. I literally just became a sponge, is what they told us to do back then. Just become a sponge and watch what we all do, and let's
Yeah.
all just take over the market in Colorado. Which I believe, if they would have had a better business model, they would have.
I think we'd
had
still
a
be
lot
with
of
them
great
to
people.
this day.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of that time frame of how I got to have that entrepreneurial spirit to say.
Yeah.
I never had it before that, and then I just built off of that. I took the momentum of that gym industry and kind of moved it to just every aspect of my life, and then just having people that are just badasses at what they do, like you and you know all the other people that we were friends with back then. It just helped me become a better version of myself. I took the good parts of those people and ran with it, but the bad ones, I was like, I will stay in my lane on that.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, the spirit in and of itself, like that competitiveness, I would say that it's like one of the aspects that is like most, it's one of the things that I both love and hate about you. Because like to a certain point, like it is, and it keeps us going and it keeps us chasing and it keeps the company moving forward. And it's kept me moving forward myself and everything, with you just, in lack of better terms, picking me up and dragging me along, with you along the way, which, I'm very appreciative. But again, it like kind of pissed me off, over time and everything. Cause I'm like, gosh, because you're so competitive that like it annoys you so bad that it pisses you off and everything, which is good. But also, I wouldn't say it's destructive, because here we are and everything, but definitely that balance is key.
And I will say I had to learn, and props to my wife, because she's helped me a lot with that, but being aware of other people around me and not just focusing, not like just making decisions and running and saying, I'm going to spend $100 and buy whatever I need to buy with $100. Like now I have to think about it and say, I can't spend this amount of money without my team being aware, but then also being supportive of that idea. And if for example, like we were thinking about hiring people for our company, and we took a step back and said, wait, like I was ready to just fire off and say, let's hire a bunch of people. But then we would have ended up with that kind of reputation that a lot of companies have in Colorado in the roofing industry, where they have such a high turnover. They're hiring 100 people a year and they're maybe retaining one. And then that person's producing barely anything. And I'm not saying just any company. I think every company does it, just because the low-hanging fruit is there. For us, we're allowing kind of things to happen and communicating with each other as a team. So that's what I'm saying. I couldn't make that decision without you guys supporting it. And now, we are where we are. We have the team that we have, and we are building up our resources. But I think it's going to turn out to be, I'm becoming more of a aware person of others around me, instead of just shooting from the hip and going and affecting people,
which is needed at certain points, because I think like the dynamic that me and you have as business partners is, I can definitely be more of the analytical person that just kind of like wants to wait till everything's perfect to get something started, like even with this podcast and stuff like that, and the company and everything. But that will only get you, it won't get you anywhere. Like you can figure out all the processes, but it does take somebody to just pull the trigger, which you're definitely that person, where it's like, it could be the worst situation or it could be the best situation. You just, you shoot from you do shoot from the hip, and sometimes that's needed. Otherwise you'll never make any growth, any progress.
There's a balance, but yes,
definitely a balance and stuff, and
a lot of prayer sometimes, because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm
doing.
But
in my personal opinion, for everybody on the podcast and everything, I personally think that the ability to just shoot and go is far more important than having the ability to analyze and figure everything out before you actually go and do it, because then you're never going to do anything. And as you've seen it, I don't think where we would be where we're at if it wasn't for you calling a lot of those shots and just having us, go out and do it. So it's a very, admirable.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, characteristic.
I appreciate that. And I mean, and again, it just, we're building something good, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, so I appreciate the compliment.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. You're welcome. Going back to a little bit more of your story, um, like I said, you've talked a lot about, we both have a very big faith background, and we both have given our life to Christ and everything, and we've seen the role that's played in our lives. We've talk a little bit more about that and the role that he's played in your life growing up and coming to him, and kind of how all of that transpired.
Yeah. Oh man, that can be a very long story, but I'll just make it short and sweet. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for
Mhm.
my faith in God, and I wouldn't have anything of what I have without His grace. Like, yeah, it's just it's tough, and I get a little bit teary eyed because of it. But
Yeah.
man, okay, drink some water.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so my faith has been literally the biggest thing in my life. Growing up, the trials, the tribulations, the financial struggle, the losing people through life in general is a big thing. And yeah, man, I can go more into
Yeah.
detail, but I think I'm gonna choke up more, and I don't really want to cry.
That's fair. We
And
don't have to,
but I will
yeah.
say this: the big the moment that I gave my life to Christ in 2012.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was 2013 when I left college. I had a relationship at that time, and it really broke me when those two things kind of fell. And
Mhm.
that's the moment that I gave. I know for a fact that that's when I felt the Spirit really take over my life, because I was just like, I'm done. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Kind of like the same with you, where you're like,
Yeah.
my life, like I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but clearly like I need help.
Yeah.
Like take it.
Yeah.
It was the same thing for me.
Yeah.
And again, fast forward to now, it's just I am just incredibly thankful to God for having the
Yeah.
grace that He had on my life.
Yeah. No, looking
So
at both me and you from face value, it definitely is an act from him, because neither one of us, I think, are qualified to be where we're at. But
that's the
as
cool
I
thing.
said,
And like
yeah,
when you look at the Bible, you look at all His disciples, and you look at. I'm not comparing. I'm not saying I'm any close
yeah,
to any of that. I'm just having all His disciples, and bringing them being criminals and thieves and all these different things. And yet again, He loved them so much that He gave them
yeah,
a purpose and a reason. And fishermen made them to leaders. Like that type of thing is like anybody, if you're watching this, like truly, like we can do it alone, and we can do it without anyone's help. And I've done it before, and it's miserable. It's draining.
yeah,
Become very bitter and very angry and very manipulative and very money hungry, really. And it's not healthy. But when you do it His way, He opens the doors. He pulls you out of certain situations that He knows aren't good for
yeah,
you, even if you're making good money. But He puts you in even better, situations in your life where you're letting Him kind of
yeah,
dictate your future instead of letting other people,
yeah.
you know, have that role in your life. So I don't know. It's just
I've always related my walk with God. It's not the easiest. It's not the easiest path, but it is the best one,
yeah,
and it's going to get you um, through this life very excitingly. Maybe not easily, but
yeah,
it'll be very exciting,
yeah,
to
yeah.
say the least.
So I guess
Um,
for my fellow DACA students out there, if anybody or any younger person that is an immigrant who has been through something similar, and you're trying to find some type of hope or anything, like I just encourage you to just keep going, and not quit and not give up, because I can say I'm a living testimony. I literally know for a fact that I wouldn't have never achieved anything without good people next to me, people that keep me accountable, people that love me, the family that I have even through
mhm,
thick and thin, and then my faith
yeah,
and fitness. Fitness is a huge part of
yeah,
the whole thing.
I agree. We're
Um,
both fitness, gym nuts,
yeah,
maybe a little bit too much
yeah. But
sometimes.
anyways,
Yeah.
enough about emotional stuff.
Okay. All right.
Switch it up.
No, we'll move on.
Also,
We'll move on.
our sponsor. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So we've gotten past a lot of like what how you grew up. You're, I mean, your family is I guess we don't have to go too much, but your family, means a lot to you,
Yeah.
growing up. And so I guess a little bit of because I know family is very, very big to me. We got into a lot of that, um, in the last podcast. So as far as your family, I know we have very different, both come from large families, but we both have very different dynamics
Mhm.
when it comes to that, where I'm like second to the last, very young and everything. And, bottom of the pecking order, where you're kind of, you've been the lead of your family for a long time. So, I guess, yeah, share a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, excuse me. So again, it was me and my sister. So I have 5 siblings. My older sister, then it's me, then it's my brother Alex, then it's my brother Eric, then my brother Isaiah, and then Anna. So yeah, I mean, my sister and I grew up really close together. So my relationship with her is very, very, very like she's like one of my best friends. She's done so much for me. Her and I spent so much time together growing up, literally like just being best friends
Mm.
and being very supportive for each other. My mom used to work very long nights, so she worked as a janitor, and she would leave home maybe like around between 5 and 6 p.m., and then wouldn't come back home until about 5 or 6 a.m. the next day, and then have to get up 2 hours later to get my sister and I ready for school, take us to school, feed us, whatever, go pick us up, feed us dinner, and then leave again for work. And I think that was 5, 6 days a week. So my mom is a great example of what it's like to be resilient and be tough and hard, even when life is literally just hard
Yeah.
and tough. And so I mean, she's such a role model for me. Like I know now, knowing what she did for us, the sacrifices that she did, I know you know, why she did what she did and why she worked so hard and why she worked long hours, because that was the only way she was going to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
And then my other siblings, I'm, close to all my siblings as well. I think we have a really good relationship. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen, in the professional life of my siblings, but I'm very happy for them. They're all healthy, which is important. They all know who Christ is. They have faith, and yeah, and that's kind of my upbringing. I'm not very close to a lot of my uncles and aunts or anything like that, but my
Mhm.
family is. It's something that like really motivates me and pushes me to want more, because I
Mhm.
want to be. It's not that I want like like extreme wealth. Like it'd be nice. That's in God's hands. I'll let that. If that's meant to happen, it's gonna happen. But if not, then I'm happy where He has me. But as far as like being an example to my family that you can do it and that we don't have to
Yeah.
stay where we were, like when we were growing up, how tough it was to have food on the table, moving so many times. Like, I want my future kids to know that I'm gonna bring stability and support and
Right.
love and be there to support them with sports and things. So it's more like a generational like
Yeah.
change that I kind of want with my family. But my family is a major major motivator for me personally to want more
Yeah.
and pursue more and know that I've been through the toughest of toughest, and having them in my corner, I know that if I went broke in a week, I know that my family would be there with open arms to support me. And that's why it's so important for me to give back to them, to give them that hope and that, that love
Yeah.
that I was shown. So,
Yeah. No, that's super important to have that ambition and that motivation to grow, because especially, coming from, an immigrant and somebody that, came across the border to, the land of opportunity to America and everything, it's important to show people that like you can do, like I said, like wealth or not, like wealth is 100% a state of mind and everything, but it's having that ability to grow and to pursue and just to be more than
yeah.
just, what you are. And like I said, the most amount of props to your mother, and I've met her and she's amazing. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't communicate
Yeah.
very well, but I
Yeah.
mean, but as far as that, like she's an amazing woman,
Yeah.
very much so, like a lot like my mom. They remind
Mhm.
me a lot of each other, and yeah, and if it wasn't for her hard work and ambition and everything to lead you guys, but now you're in that place where it's like, let's do more.
Yeah.
Let's take the next step as a generation, as a
Mhm.
family, and everything to move on. Like you've felt those struggles, and then unfortunately, I think that you have to go through those struggles to move to
Yeah.
that next state and that next
Yeah.
place of life.
Yeah.
So, um, Yeah. So okay, so your family, school life, work life, and everything. We've talked a little bit about Aspire and what the impact that had on both of our lives. I think it had a very massive impact and really shaped us as people.
Oh
And me
yeah.
and you became best friends. But moving on into pride in the roofing industry. I mean, that is an area where I think that you really came into a lot of like your groove as who you were, as especially as a leader and as a salesperson. Like I said, it's I guess it's new to me that you weren't like as entrepreneurial as you were beforehand. But that's where like you flourished in sales and everything. Like you beat everybody out of the competition. So what is like sales and all of that like played as like as a role
Yeah.
played in your life, and what kind of drew you to that?
I mean, I think I just happened to fall into that
Yeah.
category of sales. I don't think I chose it or I wanted it. I kind of wanted to work at a gym again, going back to that, but I never thought it was going to be me selling people like memberships and then transitioning to personal training, stuff like that. And I don't know, man. I used to watch a lot of videos of like some badass people like on YouTube on things that were just feeding my mind a lot of really positive things. I
Hmm.
was literally feeding my mind everything good that I could think of just to get me to learn because I had nobody to look to and nobody to go to and look at as an example. And so when they said become a sponge and learn from others, I remember one time in the gym industry, and that'll translate to the roofing company we worked for. But in the gym industry, I saw the big dogs walk around, right? And I saw them with confidence. I saw them very passionate and very articulate and very motivated. And then you saw them train, and it was like, man, these guys are freaking robots and they're
Yeah.
huge. And like, I want to learn what they do
Yeah.
because it'll be good for me, basically. And so I started literally like, I became not, I wouldn't say a fangirl or anything. I wasn't doing that for anybody, but I became very inspired by the people who were in that level because I was just across the table from them.
Yeah.
And so when they noticed that I was selling a lot of memberships and stuff like that, I actually met one of the owners at the Westminster branch. She came in and I was there by myself. Um, and funny story, well, one of the owners, one of them was named Rashawn and the other one was Nolan. And Rashad, was it Rashawn or Rashad? I
I
don't
think it's
remember, something
Rashawn.
with
I
an
don't
R.
know. Yeah.
But he came in and I didn't know he was the owner. And then the other salesperson was giving another tour. And basically he came up and I was sitting there and I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? This is Edgar. My name is Edgar with X company. I was like, do you want a tour? And he just played along. He was like, yeah, I'll have a tour. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's walk around. Had to paint him a picture of the gym, the same script that everybody had. I had to nail it. And then at the end of the tour, he was like, oh, I appreciate the tour, man. My name is, Rashad. I'm the owner of the company. I'm like, oh, great. So I'm sitting there like,
Yeah.
dude, like I'm sweating. I'm like, how did I do? This is like my second week working here. Like, I kind of took some, he was like, no, you did fine, man. Like you're confident. You didn't even know who I was. And you did really good. And
Yeah.
basically that was that. But the other owner, when I met him, I asked him, I was like, what do I have to do to get to, to become better and become someone who basically inspires other people? And one thing he told me that I always remembered was, what are people saying about you? Like, look at this person. He mentioned the name. Look at that person. What do you have to say about him? And I told him, he was like, if I went to someone else, what do you think they would tell me? I would say probably the same thing. He's like, exactly. You need to learn to earn the respect of others, to
Mm.
be able to, become what you want to become. Because if you don't
Yeah.
have respect, you don't really have much. And so that stuck to my head. And
It's
for me,
powerful.
it
Yeah.
became a thing I lived for. After that, I was like, man, I need to become a better friend. I need to become, and I took it to heart and I started like applying it. And then fast forward to the roofing company we worked for, I kind of, you know, it was one of those things where that whole thing fell apart and then we kind of went our separate ways and we reconnected at that company and, we both, started as a commission based only. We both sucked at the beginning, like very, very bad.
Yeah.
And we had to learn through trial and error, basically how to do things. Like I don't even know how I signed my first contract that one year, but I signed it. I think it was full RCV, but we only did the roof. I have no idea what happened. But
Yeah.
anyway, so after that, we kind of got momentum. And then when we became, or they put us in leadership positions at that company where you became, sorry, sales manager and I was the GM. Um, man, it was really tough because I became very, very, very selfish during that time at that
Mm.
company. I became very self-centered, and I think it was because of what they were feeding me in my head. Like, you are the best. You need to be an example. You need to go out there and kill it. You need to show how it's done. And I was like, yeah, I do need to show. Do need to win. I do need to. But I became very like I was like a lone wolf. If people ask me questions, I would hate when people ask me questions because I was like, I'm the one that wants to win. I'm the one that has to prove something.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I share my knowledge with you, basically? So I became very selfish and very self-centered. And one of our best friends, Austin, would come up to us and ask me questions. And he basically, I would be a real dick and wouldn't give time of day. And so I had to get out of that mentality. And so had to go back to that one thing that he told me. He was like, what are people saying about you? And I reflected on that with that company. And I was like, what are people saying about me?
Yeah.
And I started having very serious anxiety attacks. I don't even know why. I think it was just the people we were with, the pressure they were putting on us, the amount of stress, the spiritual kind of battle that was happening during that time. And it became very aware that people, I didn't really care about what people were saying, but I cared more about like, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
what am I like pursuing type of thing.
It goes back to that level of like actual character, because there are people that, you just want when you say like, because that really resonated with me when you said that, what are other people saying about you? Because at the end of the day, you can either, and that's kind of the point that I came to, in my like, kind of like the turning point in, I think a lot of my character is it's like you either stop lying about who you are or you be who you say you're going to be. Like stop, running through these motions, telling people that you're going to, do this. And then you come to them a month later and you still haven't done it. And all of this, like you're just, your character and your words and actions, like who you are. And then what you say, like aren't lining up. And I kind of like, that's and you can figure out what that is by what people say about you.
Yeah.
Like, I think, because if it's coming from multiple sources and everybody's saying the same thing, it's like, well, am I that?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
my action, because we can have a very different perception in our own mind of who we actually are.
Yeah.
And so,
and it's a bad habit because once you get into that dark area where you're like become very self-centered,
right.
you don't realize what you're doing to other people outside of your own mind. Like you don't realize how it's affecting others. You don't, I think we've all been there where, we do get to that selfish place and then somehow you just get taken out of it. And like, dude, you need to realize there's more people around you that it does affect, your actions affect them. So yeah.
Well, it speaks to your character. Like it speaks to character in general to like see that and like want to be better rather than, because there's a lot of people that would just rather play the part and everything, but really have like, the selfish intent and everything. But you actually, you truly like from deep down want to be a better person. You want to be who you say that you are rather than just,
but
yeah,
I would say sales and fitness completely changed my life. Like I was 120 pounds, like soaking wet.
I've seen photos
by the age of like 22.
Yeah.
I'm not that, I mean, kind of still a little bit, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so it was one of those things where I was super skinny, very insecure. I couldn't talk to people. Like it was like a plain buzz, no hair on my head, kind of like, looked like I was sick kind of. And the sales in general changed my life. I'm able to communicate with people a lot better. Sometimes, I'm so thankful for it because I'm able to just do things like this, start a podcast with you and my best friend and do other things outside of the norm that I usually, when I was, 22, 21, I would have never thought to be speaking in front of people or selling or any of that. So, sales has been, to sum it all of everything that I said earlier, sum it all has been life-changing for sure. And
those two things very important in my life, obviously, because we're both doing the same thing. But having like just having that physical well-being plays a lot into your emotions and your state of being and everything. And being, like I've always said this, like sales is just proper communication skills.
Yeah.
Like how to get something done.
Yeah.
Basically, good sales is
Yeah.
anyways, is just figuring out a need and solving it. And if
Yeah.
you can do that, then you can get along with most people in your life. I mean, I've always said, because my brother's, funny enough, an engineer, and me and him talked about it, but it's like if you're an engineer, if you have two engineers and they go in for the same job, the same same everything, they have the same qualifications, same degree, but one of them has people skills and the other one does not, they're going to hire the one that can explain that he can do the job better than the other guy.
Yeah.
And so to everybody out there, develop your social skills. It's good for you.
Yeah. No, but yeah. So, that's kind of like my whole brief upbringing, because like I can go in more detail about family and God and everything like that. And I think over time we'll be able to kind of get more deep into those conversations when we have other guests. But yeah, for the most part, I guess I do feel like I've improved a lot and I'm still learning, and I'm, vice versa. Like I still see you learning as well. And there's still struggles in life, as everybody has. And if you see us doing this, it doesn't mean we don't have problems outside of, a video camera. Like just know that it's life, and life isn't always pretty, but just make the best of it.
And it's a privilege that we could get to do this.
Yeah.
And just speaking in front of people is intimidating.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any other questions for me that?
I mean, we've gone through a lot of your life and your upbringing, and I guess, how you've gotten to be the man that you are today. I guess, is there anything that you want to share about, the company in and of itself, and kind of, because this is obviously a big stage of our life and a big, I mean, this is who we are now. Is there anything that you want to share on that, and like how we got to be where we are? Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy that we are where we are. We're going on 3 years in business. Our first year was, it was questionable whether or not we were going to do this from the beginning. We never, you kind of, again, we communicated with each other. I was more of the idea of like, let's just go and do it. We're not happy. We're not in a healthy environment. So why stay? Like, we can either do that or go work elsewhere. Like, let's do something, but I couldn't stay there any longer. For you, it was more like we're both very loyal. We stayed there for a very long time, but at the same time, it was like the mental toll. But then we got to the place where we both decided, it's about time. Let's go ahead and, cut ties, gave it a break for a couple months. We went ahead and the Rolexes that we've received, we had Rolexes, and we decided to sell those to start our company, to fund a lot of the things that we were trying to do on top of the savings that we had. And we just put it all on the table. And then it was interesting learning and still learning all the aspects that go into the business, and figuring out, where we want to see ourselves by year 5, because we know we're going to expand. But for the most part, I think it was, honestly, for me personally, it was the best decision that I've ever made, hands down. And I know we've talked about this, and we're both on the same page of where we want to see ourselves and with the company. And, we're going on our 3rd year, and I'm very pumped for the future. And we have a lot of great people that support us, from family, friends, referrals. I mean, this year was insane. I think we usually go into business and we knock doors and then you generate business. But this year it was just word of mouth. Every single person that has used our services has been referral. To this day, yesterday, I think yesterday alone, 2 referrals, complete full replacements type of thing. It's like crazy. But yeah, so I'm just very happy with the progress we've made, what we've learned, the connections we've made, learning from each other. And I don't know if that kind of answers the question of the company. No, absolutely. Yeah. And I completely agree 100%. It's definitely the best decision that we've made. It's a very big, it's much different than, being an employee and all of that stuff, but obviously it comes with the territory. But there's nothing, I mean, getting to build your own thing, do your own thing and everything, mold it from the ground up and have that projection of what you want the future to be and how you want to grow, where you want to grow and stuff. And then being able to collaborate with each other on how we want to do that is very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
and I think we're going to get into the point of where we're going to wrap this up. But I just want to encourage one more time every single person out there. If you have something in mind that you want to do, look at our stories. We were not meant to be here. We were not meant to do what we're doing. We don't have degrees to be owners. We don't have degrees to be entrepreneurs. We don't have, you know, the skills that other business owners have. But one thing we do have is our faith and our faith in ourselves and in our team. And we're not closed minded. And so just be that sponge, like I mentioned earlier. Learn from others. Be willing to like invest in your mind because that's the biggest thing that you can do. And again, just look at Jon's story and mine, and I hope it encourages someone out there to know that, you know, no matter what you're doing right now, that if you have a something that you want to do as far as like a business or something, just start it, like do it.
Yeah.
That's my recommendation, because if you don't do it down the road, you're probably going to regret it.
Yeah.
So
put your cards on the table. There's always more money to be made. There's only a few moments that you have. So
yeah. So yeah, guys, next week we will have another podcast. I think we've kind of wrapped up the portion of the episode 1 and episode 2 of what kind of our backgrounds. Mine's kind of all over the place, so I hope you got the context of it, from being an immigrant, not applied in school and all that. But in the near future, in week I believe 4, we have a guest already lined up. Next week we're going to line someone else up, and we're just going to be having guests moving forward, to share their stories and how they got to where they are. So yeah, if you are interested in coming on the podcast, if you are, again, like I mentioned last week, someone who has a story or you own a business of any kind, and you want to share how you were able to get to where you are and inspire other people to pursue that same goal and same dream, we would love to host you here. We give you the platform to share that story. And again, this is our episode 2. So if hopefully everything's going smooth, but we appreciate the support. And like I said earlier, if you guys could follow, if you guys could subscribe to our channel, if you're interested in this content. If you're not, I totally get it. It's totally fine. But yeah, we appreciate the support. And with that, I don't know if you have any last thing you want to say.
No, yeah, we would love to get other people on the podcast, have you come share your story, what you're all about, life struggles and all of those things. So yeah, if you are interested in that and having, getting your story told on a small podcast that hopefully blows up and gets big as we all want, it'd be fantastic. Yeah, we'd love to have you guys on.
Yeah. Well, we'll catch you on the next episode. And we will be rewinding next week again. So take care, guys. We'll see you.